all I can do is believe what they tell me. I have no reason to disbelieve it. So good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. My name is Richard Askam. I'm your host for the next hour on the FuturePrint Leaders Summit. We're here to do a little bit of future gazing today. The idea of this really is not particularly to look at plans and the upcoming plans for everybody that's joining me today, but really to look beyond that and potentially at what the industry might hold for all of us in the coming decades rather than years. And I think that's the purpose of today. It makes it easy for my guests because they don't have to be specific, and it doesn't matter if they're wrong. But what it does mean is that we can largely have a nice, wide-ranging, thought-provoking conversation this afternoon. We'd very much welcome your thoughts and your questions. You're all familiar with it now. We've kind of been doing it for long enough. There's a chat button at the bottom. There's a Q&A button at the bottom. If you do have any questions or comments, please do feel free to send those in. We will do our best to answer them. But you might struggle to get a word in edgeways between my guests this afternoon. And I think the easiest way is to let them introduce themselves. But I guess it starts with a good old-fashioned joke that a Scotsman, a German, and an Englishman walked into a bar. What did they say? So let's start with the Scotsman. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, Zach.
Absolutely. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, it's Peter Gunning. I'm the CEO of Grafenia PLC. We're on the London stock market. I've been with Grafenia since 1998. I opened the very first printing.com store in Edinburgh back then, and I've moved through a variety of roles, ending up as CEO about 5 years ago when the founder stepped down. Pleased to be here.
Thank you very much. Well, it's nice to have you here. And then a German walked into the bar. So the other Peter, please.
Yes. Hi, Richard. Yeah, I'm happy to hear. Thanks for the invitation to this group. My name is Peter Wolff. I'm working for Canon Europe. I'm since 30 years with the company, and today I'm in charge of sales and service for a product portfolio which we call production printing products. That's predominantly small and large format inkjet technology, but also some toner technology.
Thank you very much. And finally, the Englishman who clearly is going to have to buy the drinks as he walks into the bar.
I kind of think we're missing the Irishman somewhere as well.
We are, actually, you're right.
That's the funny bit, was always the Irishman. But I'm Robin East. I'm Group Sales and Marketing Director for CMYUK, one of the founders as well, with John Price. We're the UK's largest supplier of wide format and super wide format digital printing equipment and cutting materials and associated materials.
Brilliant. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Really appreciate the time. I know we're all a little bit zoomed out and teamed up and Google Hangout and all that kind of stuff. But do you know what? One of the things that I've found over the last 12 months is the ability to talk in this environment at any time to anybody has really been a boon, I think, to the industry. And as a speaker and a host in the print industry, I think it's really given a different edge, a different advantage to all of our sort of working lives. I'd be interested, before we start talking about the future, we can't ignore the present, awful times for many. But let's try and focus a little bit today on the positives. And I'd like to hear from each of you really what you think the major impact has been, not only for your own business, but also the industry as a whole, really, of the last 12 months. So I'm going to start with Robin.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I think, if you wind the clocks back to, March, when everyone sort of thought they were standing on a cliff edge, not knowing what the future held. One thing that I've seen over the period following that was, maybe this is a natural thing that us human beings doing. We're very resourceful. Actually, I think we forget that. And I saw a lot of our customers, and us included, particularly owners, get really close back to the coalface and realise that this was something that they hadn't experienced before, and that it had an urgency about it. And as a benefit of that, I think that they've become much more in tune with their own business. That might sound a funny thing to say, but sometimes as an owner, you can get a bit detached as your business develops and grows. And when you get you're faced with a disaster like this, you get very close to it and you start analysing it. You start looking for ways to control it and you know, look at costs again and look at the way that you produce things. And I think that's actually a positive thing that's happened. Over the following 12 months, I think a lot of businesses have actually benefited from it, strangely.
Yeah. And Peter Wolff, I guess, you know, probably we've all had to do this level of introspection and navel gazing to a certain extent. To a certain extent, we've had a lot of time to do that, and sitting in our home offices around the world and you know, gazing really at our own businesses. We never get that time normally, do we? Have you found that at Canon?
No, definitely not. I have to say, we have seen it in different companies as well. I think the industry was split over the last 12 months into kind of two groups. So there were businesses where exactly has happened what you are saying, that you had a lot of time probably to think about different things. And I really like the remark from Robin, that you're going back to the core of your business. That really is something I haven't thought about that, but I recognize it. But we in our company have had a lot of work. Much more than we have ever expected, but to give it a positive view as well, I think we have customers who really see this also as an opportunity. Maybe not in March and April, but meanwhile, the good thing is that we as human beings get used to this situation, and after a while we understand that this is not the end of everything. And then we are often in a position that we switch over into a more opportunity-driven view, and we search for possibilities how we can, go forward.
You know, I think that's very true to say. And Peter, I guess as a Scotsman, you're used to being resourceful, especially living in England. You're constantly on the run, I would imagine. You know, and that feeling of, well, I guess that familiarity, if you like, with that feeling that your pants are on fire, and therefore you've got to think your way through this again. Have you found it the same way?
Yeah, I mean, so I mentioned printing.com before. We've been running a network of local print stores for 2 decades, but maybe 10 years ago we could start to see the world changing. And I think what happened since March is really just an acceleration of everything that we were seeing happening in slow motion, happened almost overnight. And so we've got a few hundred Nettl neighborhood locations. So they're independent businesses in communities all around the UK and in some of the countries. So like Robin, we were right at the coalface with seeing our clients closing, our clients having their events cancelled. You started to see in sort of even January, you started to see the people coming from the Far East, those exhibitions getting postponed. And what was interesting for us really though is not everything was affected the same way. So traditional print hit very, very badly, but then all the wayfinding signage and COVID secure product range, masks, they did well. But really it was the digital, and it was the clients turning to update their websites, put click and collect on because people couldn't open stores, and we were dealing with the digital side of things first, just out of sheer necessity. So it has been a hairy time, but I think one of the things that we've seen as a positive is, you know, we've got 200 or so independent business owners who were all experiencing this for the first time, and just being part of a community, being part of something bigger, knowing where to turn to, and sharing ideas, I think is incredibly important at times like this. So just the power of community, I think, would be the biggest positive that's come out of this for us.
It's always the one thing that strikes me, Peter, about the print industry is the power of that community. And I think since I first stood up on a stage and and pretended to be good at what I do 5-6 years ago, it still continues to strike me to this day that there is such a true collaboration in the industry, and hopefully, of course, that's there to stay. And you touched on something there about acceleration, really from a strategic perspective, and digital is what you mentioned. Do you all feel the same, that actually in the industry there's maybe been some stuff that's leapt forward 5, 10, 15 years in its development in a relatively short space of time? Has that been the same for all three of you? Robin, you go first.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I was about to say, just when you were talking there, Peter, as well, I don't think sometimes we give printers enough credit. They're a very entrepreneurial breed.
Yeah.
You look at the way that, when Peter was talking there, where some sectors get hit, they diversify very, very quickly. What do we know about face masks? But it almost didn't matter. What printers are actually very good at is taking orders, delivery, logistics. There's a lot of core skills within printing that are so adaptable. And I think that's one thing that will change the industry forever, is the other kind of market opportunities that I think printers have seen that they're very capable of doing, actually, that could be new revenue streams.
Yep, absolutely. Peter, Wolff, do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's also a good learning, because it makes you strong for whatever is going to happen in the future. But the acceleration is really something we experience for ourselves as well. Richard, that we are a company where we are working on the transition of technologies from analog to digital, like a couple of others as well. I have to say, I'm in that since maybe 15 years, and we always expected it to come faster. And we always, meanwhile, got used to it, that it has a certain slow speed and that it's going step by step in small steps. And there was a big change over the last 12 months, definitely, that people who were reluctant to look into these so-called new businesses, they suddenly were much faster. But it's a certain group of people. You certainly, if you want to do a big step forwards, whether it's a collaboration with others or investments in new technologies or opening new portals or platforms, you certainly need to have the capability, the guts, but also a certain financial background to do that.
Yeah, no, it's ironic, isn't it, Peter Gunning, that we've probably all been sat around for 5 years saying, why isn't digital taking off quicker? And then for the last 12 months going, is there any chance you could slow down a little bit? That would be great. So
the biggest clear winner out of this lockdown is e-commerce, isn't it? And it's been people, many more people who had never tried online shopping have tried it for the first time, and they've liked it. And they say that it takes 21 days for habits to be formed, and every lockdown has just reinforced the habit of online ordering. I think that's got to be one of the big things that remains as well. I mean, sure, people will go back to shops, sure, people will return, but surely more business is going to be done online than was before, and maybe not. And that's not just adding to your cart, or just transacting with clients and transacting with your clients online in a way that suits them. That's just got to accelerate. Why you don't want to phone somebody to get an invoice or to check on the status. You want to do as many things as you can self-service, and again, I think that's going to be one of the things that sticks around.
No, you're absolutely right, Peter. And the psychologists always say that it takes 3 months to affect behavioural change.
Yeah.
But of course, we've never had 3 continuous months in order to affect behavioural change.
Yeah.
So, I joked a while back that you would never start an experiment with the planet by turning it off and turning it on again. But that's largely what's happened, isn't it? And we've all had to reboot in many different ways, including this format today. But as I said at the top of the hour, I think it's in a lot of ways it's added positives to the industry, certainly from a speed of communication and the ability to talk to your contemporaries around the world, as long as you remember time zones. Last week, I had a meeting booked for what I thought was Wednesday at 11, turned out to be Thursday at 12. So I haven't quite caught up with that one yet, but you know, it is definitely a changing environment. We've got a question here from Joe Francis. Good afternoon, Joe. Thanks for the question. And it says, it seems to me that the pandemic has accelerated the adoption of digital printing, because in some cases customers couldn't risk ordering their normal large print runs. If you agree, how many years of progress in that direction do you think has been made in the last 12 months? Peter Gunning, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think that's entirely right. I mean, if you're selling B2B, the challenge has become, you can't just direct mail to offices anymore. You could, because everybody was working from home, and you couldn't just put inserts into trade magazines, because they were probably being delivered to a pile in an office somewhere. So I think definitely we've seen run length shorten, and I think there's been a move. We've seen a move to clients looking for alternative ways to reach their clients, and like it or not, where clients are is online and on search engines. And so, having to, clients wanting to invest in search engine optimization and pay-per-click to get people to their websites might have displaced print, a spend that was going on print. So, Joe, you said 5 years normal progress, maybe. That doesn't feel ridiculous.
It's hard to quantify exactly. I understand that.
Yeah.
And Peter Wolff, I guess, for you really is more at the manufacturing end of the market. You maybe don't necessarily see that impact as directly on your business as the D2C end of it. But I guess what you're seeing is the requirement from the D2C end of it to update to digital. Is that reasonable?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And this is what is really a big difference. Companies where we try to get connected to over the last couple of years. And they always had a business with analog technologies and other applications. Yes, they are suddenly much more open, because they see that the world is going around faster, and they just don't want to miss it. And these are conversations which we have, and you know that our larger projects are always have a lead time which is beyond 3 or 4 months. But people are really ready to invest, and they believe that the trend is accelerating and that the direction is clear. I agree with the 5 years Peter has mentioned before, but what we also see is, in addition to Peter's remarks, our customers have applications which are also benefiting from the current situation. Book printing is one of them. Yeah, so people are more at home. They start reading or read more, and with the challenges in the logistics supply chain to China, and where the bigger run lengths are printed in books, they have moved volumes back to Europe, and this is where quite a lot of our customers are benefiting from with then their digital equipment. But on the other hand, also home decoration is something where we are talking about since quite a long time, and this is really starting up now much stronger. And I'm sure Robin knows that as well. I have been at his webpage before, and have seen that he has also some editorials or learning programs for this area for his customers. So this is another application where we really see that benefit in the direction of printing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Robin, I was reading yesterday, as I'm sure you were, of Kingfisher's 600% profit increase in the last 12 months because of apparently we're all DIYers now. I'm not, but
there's been some real winners, you know. And again, I think it's that entrepreneurial spirit. You know, people see an opening and an opportunity. You know, I remember in 2007 we had customers that made more money through a recession. You know, because they just adapted, did something slightly differently. Joe's question is really interesting. I think we all remember as well, where 10 years ago, B2B print was, you'd sort of say, online digital print online is really for consumers, you know, and there was a lot of work that had to be done for B2B to make it viable. Lots of things within the supply chain that had to be, you know, either on technology side or the workflow side that had to be approved. I was talking to someone that really made me think the other day, actually. They were talking about the market in New Zealand, where it's virtually all digital. You know, you've got 4 million people, you've got 1 million people that live on a South Island. It's all digital. And it probably is all digital because it sort of has to be. You know, you've got 1 million people living on the South Island, you haven't got your litho printer down the road that you can just go and pick up, you know, some print or go and have a meeting with. So when digital came out, it accelerated really, really quickly because it was the most convenient way. And we've just sort of become a New Zealand in the last year in many respects. You know, as Peter was saying, when you have to work and think differently, I think it will accelerate the digital process very significantly, actually. I think it's probably changed the mindset for digital, so it could be a real positive.
Nope, Peter's left the room. Quick, let's hide. One thing that might be quite interesting, I think, to consider, you know, we've talked about the 5-year acceleration, but do any of you feel as though something has got left behind or actually gone beyond, you know, in the normal sort of development curve that we're all so very used to, with this huge acceleration in the last 12 months? Have you found, each of you, whether something that you previously thought would be the next thing is actually no longer anything because the previous thing has gone past it? Peter Gunning, does that make sense to you?
Again, so we're a client of Robbins. We invested in digital textiles 5 years ago and we were doing very well out of events and exhibitions just in time for the great exhibition extinction event. So I think maybe there's been so I'm sure events are going to come back. Will exhibitions come back? Maybe they won't be the size and scale that they were, and maybe that's activities. So
difficult, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a tricky one.
I think maybe exhibitions were probably on the wane, and it's whether they will come back or whether they'll come back in a different format. It's interesting, all the different digital events like this that have been going on. They don't displace or replace the same sense of being in the same room and wandering around a hall. So who knows?
It is one of those tricky things, isn't it? Really, and Peter Wolff, I know from first-hand experience of the proprietary events that you do with Canon. Do you think there'll be more? Yeah, the world will almost retrench back to its own stuff and stop being part of the bigger expos, as Peter's just mentioned.
I think there will be a kind of rebalancing because I think 15 months, 18 months ago, nobody would have believed that in a couple of weeks we have conversations like this and this will work. I've met many people also in my team who have explained to me that it's impossible to have an impact via Teams or Skype, and it works. But on the other hand, I think what we in our business recognize very well is that with all the events and conferences and congresses we join or we do by ourselves, it's often very much about giving a platform to our customers to meet other customers. It's not only to meet Canon and to see our technology and to listen to presentations. We put this experience as a group of people very much into the center of what we do. And this is certainly by far not the same thing when you do events digitally. But on the other hand, you know, Richard, you also extend your reach. So and for me, it's clear for the future. We will go back because also in our private lives, I think we see it really as a limitation that we can't meet other people. And then suddenly you get aware how important it is to be connected to other people, to get inspiration, to have this exchange, to get some feedback and ideas. So that's where physical events are, I think, really great for. But to my personal expectation, in a combination with digital events or digital channels like we do here, and that's a big step forward, definitely.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word reach there, which I think is quite key. And certainly, the events that I've been involved with over the last 12 months, the attendance has been off the charts because, of course, nobody's got anywhere else to go. It's a captive audience. You don't have to travel anywhere. You don't have to queue up for that. It's like the people that think travel is glamorous. The people that think travel is glamorous have never traveled, basically. So, but Robin, what's your thoughts? Do you agree that there's a hybrid world coming our way?
God, I mean, the jury's out. I mean, listening to you, Peter, talking about events and exhibitions, and that is a big part of our, where our material was going, of course. And I'd like to think it would bounce back completely. But I think you're right. I think I think one of the things I picked up on you saying was for a lot of exhibitions, was the writing on the wall a little bit anyway. I think a lot of manufacturers, particularly in the printing industry, which is close to our heart, I think they're really evaluating where they're best spending their money. A lot of them over the last few years, we've seen them, partners of ours, really tightening their purse strings actually, and evaluating whether it's the best way to sell, for their buck. But then there's the other side where, which is a bigger part of exhibition, is the consumer market. I always had this hunch that actually with retail reducing and less investment in retail, the consumer market likes to go and see products. If you want to go to the cooking show, or I remember going to the NEC a couple of years ago, and there was randomly, it was on the same time as Sign and Digital, and it was the gaming show. Oh my God, they had one hall just for people queuing in lines, all these kids, So, some exhibitions, I think, will continue to thrive. And again, we were talking just before we came back on about, if you'd asked the same series of questions after the first lockdown and this one, I thought there was a conspiracy that Zoom had started the virus, but I think that's a bit unfair. But we all thought that, well, we don't really need to ever do anything else again. We can just sort of take our dressing gowns off and pour a cup of tea and just sit here and run our businesses. Well, I think people, Peter, as you were saying, we like to interact. Yeah. We get inspiration. We're social people. We're social animals, aren't we? Yeah. We like that side of it. And I think we underestimate the kind of energy that you get at a meeting when you're actually sat on the other side of a table. You actually underestimate the kind of relationships that you build in a restaurant and a bar with a customer. That doesn't happen over Zoom, that kind of, lasting relationship, perhaps. I hope that a lot of that will come back to normality.
I've said a number of times now, and you've probably all heard me say it, that for all of these big exhibitions and shows and conferences, the real stuff gets done at the bar in the evening. So maybe we should just open a pub and do it that way. But here's one for you. We're gazing into the future today. So I just want to pick up on something that you just said there in terms of the gaming show and so on. Is there an argument for the print industry, in order to engage with a younger and a wider audience, to actually make the exhibitions more experiential and not just be about print to print, but as in industry, but to be about print to consumer or print to potential worker or print to student? You charge them money to come in, you lay on the best show that you can possibly do, and it's an event that they come to. So it's not about cost, because largely they're gonna pay to come in, and you show them what print can actually do. What do you think about that, guys?
So Richard, that is genius. We held some events a few years ago called Expoganza, and it was that was the exact aim, was to remove that kind of stuffy boys club feeling. So we hired galleries or warehouses, turned all the lights off. We had loads of fabric stands, all nicely printed with CMYUK fabrics, DJ, smoke machines, a free bar, And I think we've had 1,600 people come to these events. We had the last one planned in Fort Lauderdale as the travel ban was announced into America. So we haven't done one since. But that getting people to come and see print in a non-sterile environment as an experience, we found that to be an incredibly good way of showing the product without just having here's 29 quid for this thing. So yes, I agree.
And I better patent that then, Peter, if it's a good idea. I have so few. I need to put my name down on that one. But Peter Wolff, I know something that we always talk about is how we get the next generation, and in fact the next generation, to get excited about the print industry. And maybe that's the way. Instead of just talking to ourselves all the time, we actually put on a show. And because let's be honest, we're making the sexy products. It would be quite exciting, I think, for the youth of today, he says, sounding like an old man, to come in and see how it's done. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you go to newspaper shops, for example, and when you then do that at airports or stations, and then your train stations, then you can see really the number of magazines, catalogs, which are printed for different interests. And I think then you understand that the range is very wide and also going to young people. Yes, the digital behavior has changed people in a certain way, but I personally think that there is a kind of renaissance. I have the feeling that 5, 7, 8 years ago, many people have thought that in a couple of years print will be dead, and it's coming back a little bit. And maybe I'm not objective because I'm working for a company who's developing and manufacturing printers, but I think print is recognized today more in its relevance and having a future than it is probably 5 or 8 years ago. And again, book printing is just one example. I think 10 years ago with the ebooks, everybody has thought within a couple of years, nobody will have a printed book anymore. Yeah, and nowadays there are almost no Kindles or so sold anymore. People are reading ebooks, but in a meanwhile balance with printed books, and the majority is still printed.
And Amazon are opening bookstores again. Go figure. So Robin, are you a Renaissance man? Do you see that? I mean, I would be really interested if you put on a show, by the way, that you could sell tickets to see what you guys do and what it's for. I think you've got yourself a good trainer then.
Well, firstly, I do. I think we all agree. I think print is a very sexy business, and actually, what I love about it, and we love to sort of bring young people into the business. If I look at our warehouse manager is 25, our commercial director is 28, our leading Kongsberg table demonstrator is 23. Don't tell me that young people aren't capable, and all of those people really enjoy the business. And I think what's really, really exciting about it is that in print, technology and materials has widened the amount of applications tenfold, 20-fold, actually in just the last 5 years.
Yeah.
When you say you go into print these days, you could almost pick a sector, just like you were if you passed a legal degree saying, I'm going to go into law. Someone would say to you, what part of law are you going to go into? I think now with printing, there's so many opportunities and niches that you can go into with some stuff that is so creative. We should be attracting young people now, 100%.
I think this is my point. Sorry, Peter, this is my point really about a consumer print show rather than an industry print show. Yeah. Because I don't think an awful lot of people draw a direct line between some of the fantastic products that are out there that are printed, and they don't see it as, because I think everybody has a one-dimensional view of the print industry, that it's a piece of paper with some ink on, and the world although the world has expanded so rapidly over the last 12 months, I'm not entirely sure that they can keep up with the development of digital print and what it's capable of, and 3D print and so on and so forth, unless they actually ally it back to the products that they've got in their hands. So is that something, if it was a consumer print show, do you think that would elevate the market even further? Sorry, Robin.
Well, sorry, I was waiting for Peter. I don't know if that's just the answer. I think as well. I think it needs to be a sort of two-way thing. I really think that there needs to be sort of more encouragement. I'm not pigeonholing everyone, but more encouragement and a greater appetite to involve young people. To sort of try and pull them in. Peter was saying he did that kind of event. It's brilliant, because you don't need metal boxes all over the place, and in-depth demonstrations. You just need to look at market opportunities and fun stuff that's being produced at different sectors and parts of the supply chain. It's like I don't think there's an awareness enough of how creative the industry is now, and the kinds of products. I mean, look at people talk about reshoring of decor and fashion, and these are this is a market that's booming at the moment, particularly through lockdown, where young surface designers can produce collections and have products made and capitalize and commercialize all kinds of different products in a really profitable and fun way, actually.
And Peter Wolff, I know, obviously from a manufacturer's perspective, the machinery and the big, as I call them, because I'm not technical, as you know, Peter, so the big shiny bits of metal that make all the noise. I know there's lots of people that like to see those in action, but I guess one of the things that you do really well, I think, at your shows is show what they're for, not what they do. And it's interesting, there's a comment there in the chat from Peter, and he's paraphrasing Simon Sinek there, I think, about letting people know why we do what we do. It's not just what or how, but why. Do you get the sense now that the wider world, as a result of this acceleration, are almost ready to be shown why we do it?
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely a fair comment. And today we also want to discuss and talk about how does the industry look in 5 and 10 years. So when we take a typical printing company nowadays and try to imagine how this company might look in 5, 7, 8 years, it will be a different company. It will be much more a IT company, a consulting company, a company which is closely connected with its clients, understanding the needs and helping their clients to improve their business. That requires a connectivity, that requires expertise in data handling, data intelligence, that requires IT knowledge in creating solutions in marketing automation. So I think if we have in our mind, when we talk about printing, people operating a machine, this is important and also important in the future, but this is by far not the picture I have in mind when I look to the print service providers in 2030.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, and I guess Peter Gunning, that you're probably closer to that than everybody, I think, here today, in terms of that consumer behavior, which largely drives what we do. It's not the other way around. It used to be the other way around, but it's not anymore. An interesting comment there in the Q&A from Joe about the proliferation of personalized product, everywhere that you look now, and it's no longer a treat, it's an expectation. So I guess with that acceleration that we've just undergone, has that brought you closer to where the market wants you to be, do you think?
So I'm really interested in all the comments there, and I think we all think of ourselves as printers, but I don't think clients care. Clients, so there's that, you mentioned B&Q before. The guy at B&Q, they'll say, we don't sell 1/4-inch drills, we sell a 1/4-inch hole. So clients want you to come to. So they have an event they want people to come to. They're a restaurant that they want people to order from. They don't care whether it's a printed flyer, it's a QR code menu, we printed some cork engraved placemats for a fancy place that's opening. The carrier is less important than what it's used for. So Peter, who said the why, I totally agree with you there. And really it's about the reason. It's about finding the right thing to help the client to achieve what they need to achieve, and that's the key. And whether that's print, whether it's big, whether it's digital, that's it's the right product for them. It's not really it's not really our prerogative to say no, you should be on 250 gram.
Yeah, and I think that's the big change, isn't it? Really, that it's now consumer led rather than consumer followed. That's probably the biggest change in the last 5 years, never mind the last 12 months. Here's one for you. I thought I'd save a little bit of controversy towards the end of the session today, because the time is flying by. It has to be said, gentlemen. One of the things that is always asked, I think, across any, let's call them legacy industries, and the print industry is one of very few actually true legacy industries, is where are all the women? What's your view on women in the print industry, women in leadership in the print industry, diversity across the industry? It's a hot topic. It's not, we sit here today, all four of us looking a little bit like all four of us look. We need to address this. I think I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts on, not now and not 5 years, but 10, 15, 20, the next generation coming through. We talked a little bit about attracting the young people of today into the industry. What's it going to look like, Peter Wolff, in 20 years' time, do you think?
Yeah, difficult. It's really a very important topic. It has been over the last years, and it's even more important. I think it has to be different in 5 and 10 years. That's without any question. It is difficult to come there, because at least in our company, it starts already that when we have some vacancies, it's predominantly men then applying for these jobs, and that's something you can only influence in an indirect way. Yeah. So when we look to our business in leadership roles, the majority is by far men. While on the other hand, we know that women have capabilities, and we have some in our company which have a great success. So I personally would like to have much more women. So I hope my colleagues who are male understand my remark now, so they no need to be afraid now.
Yeah, this is why I say it's a controversial subject, but just because there isn't an easy answer doesn't mean we shouldn't ask a difficult question. And I think that, Robin, your view on that would be interesting.
Well, I suppose I'm different to both the Peters, because we're not actually a printer. We're a supplier. So I don't think we've probably got the same kind of ratio of split, because our sales director is female, our marketing manager is female, our purchasing manager is female, our PR manager is female, but we're not really a printer. So from our customers' point of view, yeah, I get it. I've been to a lot of industrial estates over the country over the years. That's the rock and roll lifestyle of selling kit, and you do see, particularly in the production environments, predominantly a male business. I wouldn't say that's without exception. Has it changed much in the last 10 years? Not that I've seen, if I'm honest. I don't know what your opinion on that is. There's I'd like to see it change, like everybody. There's no reason for it not to change.
I think that's the key thing, isn't it, really, Peter Gunning, that there is no reason for it not to change. It's just I take Peter Wolff's point completely, that you put up a job vacancy and you can only employ the people that respond to it. It shouldn't be any other sort of method than that. But do you find the same? Is it the same in your business, or are you a little bit more open?
I'm very pleased to be invited to talk at an event about printers. We don't think of ourselves as printers either, and Nettl is a network of, we're web design and print studios. But so I would say the split of ladies to gents in our stores is pretty even. We're a design business, so we attract and employ and recruit and hire women across the business. In production, it's weird. In lithography, almost exclusively male. In digital textiles, we have almost entirely female. So it's a weird split of who applies for the roles. But client-facing, technology-facing, I would say it's 50-50 in our business.
So do you think then that with the way that the industry is changing, and we've talked quite a lot about and Joe Francis mentions here in the Q&A about being a high-tech industry will help, being a creative industry will help, being a design-led industry will help. Is it just the old view, do you think, of it being a manufacturing industry that isn't necessarily the appeal? If the positioning is changed, and the view of that is changed as a result. And this is my point really about connecting people to the world of the whole print industry. Now, I appreciate the fact that you're not printers, but you're in the industry per se. Is that perception changing, which ultimately will solve that diversity problem? Peter Wolff? Sorry.
Well, I think it is really changing. And when we look to customers or their customers, when we have them in one of our events, then when we talk, for example, about marketing agencies or publishers, then it's sometimes even the other way around. I think it's also depending on the industry where you're talking about. And I agree with the other gentleman, when you look to the real printing manufacturing, then it's typically often still male. But there are other areas when we have events with book printers and publishers, then it's sometimes even a majority of women.
Yeah, absolutely. Robin, you're nodding your head. You obviously agree
with
Peter.
I do see that actually, where we've got customers that are more technology driven, not mentioning any names, but you do see I've noticed on the technology side, you can see a very sort of even split of female and male staff. And I think, I think any employer that would only ever recruit based on a skills match type policy. I mean, why would you not? Perhaps, the more traditional litho side is because it is just a bit more heavy metal and a bit more mucky and a bit, that's just something that I think, is perhaps attracted more from a male type operator than a female one. And maybe equally, not for any other reason, maybe that's why you see on the, Peter sees on the decor side and the textile side, you see more of a attraction from women. That's just a natural gender attraction to a role, perhaps. I don't know. But certainly I'd like to think that, I think that's an interesting comment you made, where you have much more technology involved in businesses. Print's not the mucky business that it was 20 years ago, is it? Let's face it. I think you'll see the split and the ratio change.
I think you're right, and the times that I've walked into print events and it looks a little bit like the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. Things have literally come a long way in a very short space of time. And Peter Gunning, I guess again that you're probably best placed to see that evolution, and it's a bit like we've all got our houses are rammed jammed full of technology these days, aren't they? Really, it's just become standard. But do you think that's where the appeal will come from? But not just to female employees, but just a younger generation, full stop.
Yeah, and that's I mean, we take entry level people in through our own stores and through our partner locations. They're coming from apprentices, they're coming from school, they're coming from college, and they're attracted to work in, I would say, design and marketing. The print itself, once you've done your first hot foil or spot UV job, of course you're hooked. But the actual thing that you're designing for, whether it's a click and collect nail bar website or whether it's an exhibition display, you design what the client wants, and actually all the diversity of things you can now do, I think, is appealing. Maybe 20 years ago, when you got a job in one of our stores, all you were doing all day was business cards and leaflets, and now it can be anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the subject of anything, that's a very nice segue. Thank you for that. I'm quite interested to hear from all three of you, really. A little bit of future gazing from you to finish the session off with today. Not just where you think the industry and your particular part of it will be, but where you'd like it to be in, let's say, the next 5, 10, and then maybe 20 years. So 5 feels as though it's part of the current plan. 10 will be a result of the 5-year plan, and 20 could be anything. So give me your near, medium, and far view on where you would like the industry to be. And I'm going to start with Robin.
I knew you were going to say that. I don't give you the 3 minutes to think about it.
The other two have got a chance to think.
Actually, I suppose one of the things that I think has been really good in the last couple of years, and I see as progressive, is how inclusive the technology has become. So where equipment and solutions and the sort of affordability to set up into a business and create something was prohibitive to a certain degree at a certain level, the cost has come down so dramatically. And I think that's really exciting. You know, we see with that as well, a lot of, you know, that sort of smaller, old school, could be sign maker or smaller printer, really taking and embracing new technology that would have been prohibitively expensive previously. And I really like that. And I think what that does as well for the print business is, you know, I think in the past we've sometimes thought that, you know, everything's going to consolidate, you know, there's going to be just, you know, the sort of Tesco's of print and that'll be it. And I think with the way the technology has gone on versioning, there's almost a greater opportunity with that kind of affordability as well to service local community and have a really good business in print. And I think that's quite exciting. And it makes the whole sort of industry more stable in a way.
Yeah, Peter, what's your view? What's your near, medium, and far view?
Nice Peter or bad Peter?
What are you classifying yourself as?
I'm bad.
Oh, okay. Well, bad Peter it is then.
So in the near term, I think I think the days of printer just specializing in one particular type of print are numbered, and I think really printers who are, you know, just focusing on one thing will need to diversify and get into either digital first, so that they can retain the client relationship, because if they're not able to cater for some of the things that their clients are needing, then the likelihood is that client's going to go elsewhere for the rest of it. So I think in the near term, it's going to be a bit to really embrace digital first. And just to kind of pick up on what Robin said there, genuinely, you think about you go to a restaurant, you know, 5-10 years ago, and you're just feeling the menu and deciding whether that's 400 gram. Now the ability to brand every single surface and thing you touch cost effectively and affordably the opportunities now are endless, but none of those things are easy to do yourself. So for a client to order, the inside of their premises to be wrapped and installed themselves needs skill. So I think for the local graphic professional has a place in the future designing for business, but designing experiences and environments that do things for their end client.
Yeah,
and whether that's bringing people on their website, driving traffic to their site, or doing some wonderful building wraps, they need to do it all.
Yeah, it's interesting. I noticed Peter smiling when you mentioned about the menu, because my experience of every print event I've ever been to is sitting down in a restaurant with a printer. They're not listening to me, they're doing that with the menu.
400, 415.
We'll spelling it.
Well, now it's
Peter Wolff, now known as Nice Peter, christened by Bad Peter. Give me your future gaze. What's your near, medium, and far view of where you'd like the industry to be?
Yeah, for me, it's a difference between printers and print itself. I think for service providers, there will be a direction in the future, whether they become an important part of a supply chain within the industry. So focusing on production efficiencies, high automation, end-to-end solutions, and in order to be better and cheaper than others. And there are other companies, and that has been mentioned before, who are really building up a connection to their customer base. And when I look today to some companies in the industry, I think they have a great opportunity in improving their sales capabilities, teaching, training their salespeople to get better connected with their customers and their clients. I really think that print service providers in 10, 15 years will definitely be more consulting companies delivering complete campaigns for their clients and trying to grab all the communication requirements of the customers, print and non-print, in a multi-channel or omni-channel communication. Print itself, where do I see print in the next maybe 10 years? I personally think, and that's not only me, but many other people in our company as well, that print still has a huge potential to grow, becoming more emotional and sensoric, and becoming a real important part of an experience of customers, and also in the B2B business. And that's something I think print has still a huge potential to go. And what we've seen in the last 5 years with different media and different technologies was just the start. If you bring that together in a creative and innovative way, I think there are many new things we can see in the next couple of years.
Well, do you know what? I think what we'll do in 20 years' time is sit and watch this video again in the print retirement community that we will all be in, checking out the paper quality on the menu, obviously, as we do it, and see whether any of this came true. But gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this afternoon. It's always nice to see you. I'm really looking forward to the time that we can share a beer somewhere in person, as I'm sure everybody that's watching this is today as well. Thank you first and foremost to Marcus Timpson for organising today, and the FuturePrint Leaders Summit for allowing us to take over the airways for an hour and fill you full of nonsense. And thank you all, of course, to watching. Thanks for joining us today. Nice Peter, Bad Peter, and Robin. As I said at the top, an Englishman and a Scotsman and a German walked into the bar, and what they ended up doing was having a very nice time. So,
Richard, I'm actually Welsh.
I take it all back. I take it all back. My word. That's
right to the last minute.
It's all right. We'll change that in the edit. Don't worry. Listen, guys. Thank you for your time. We'll see you.
Thanks a lot. What a pleasure.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.